Hello and welcome to another edition of the Father and Son Formula One podcast. I'm the father in the title, I'm Graham Miller, and my son Toby is here.
Hello.
This one's come out probably a lot sooner than it usually does, because we normally take about 10 days to get round to it, but we've got basically a double header, haven't we? We've got one race and then another one next weekend.
Yes, Monaco coming up soon.
So today we're going to discuss Imola. As I said to Toby, it's all right for us. We've got to record one podcast in, what, they got 5 days? Probably 4 days, actually. And all the teams have got to shift the cars, the pit garage, the tech, and probably 200 to 300 people right across Europe from Italy. Not right across Europe,
Italy to Monaco is probably one of the slightly more relaxing one. It's when they go from Monaco to Canada, and then from Canada straight back to Spain. That's a bit silly.
Yeah, and I mean, it's northern Italy as well, so it's just a little jaunt round the top of the Mediterranean.
Yeah.
I'm going to start on the Thursday, actually, because there was the tribute to Ayrton Senna, who obviously died at Imola, along with Ratzenberger, who died during qualifying.
Mm-hmm.
And that was 1994 at I believe it was the San Marino Grand Prix that time.
Yeah.
And I did kind of get a bit geeky about it, and I looked up all the corners. And have you seen video of the Rubens Barrichello crash in free practice in 94?
I have, but I don't remember it.
He hit the curb at about 200 miles an hour and literally took off.
Yeah.
And he flew through the air and he clipped the top of the tyre wall. He was probably looking at it about 18 inches from actually sailing over the tyre wall and into the fence.
Yeah.
Because I think the thing about 94 was the last death in Formula One actually at a Formula One weekend to be 1982. So we'd had 12 safe years of Formula One. And Sid Watkins, the Formula One doctor, started in 1978. So there have been some really big crashes in the early 90s. And there was a general feeling that they'd got it sussed.
Yeah.
You know, there were big crashes that, in the 70s would have outright killed the drivers. And they pretty much walked away from them. And then, the three big ones were Rubens Barrichello, Roland Ratzenberger, who actually was in his third ever race.
Oh man, I didn't know that.
Yeah. And Ayrton Senna. And that was like one weekend, and everybody was just like,
Well, it's called the blackest weekend in F1 history, isn't it?
It's a bit of a wake-up call that they actually, A, finished the race, and B, just next weekend, I think they got David Coulthard in to partner Damon Hill in Ayrton Senna's car, and just kind of carried on.
Well, yeah. I mean, it is like what would they have done? Would they have cancelled the next race? Because then they've got sponsors to appease.
Well, it's always the money. Although apparently the next race was Monaco, as it is this year, and the front row was left empty for Ratzenberger and Senna.
What of the grid?
Grid, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they all kind of agreed and just left the front row empty.
That is pretty cool.
And the other really heartbreaking thing is, I don't know if you knew this, but when they sorted out Senna's car afterwards, they found an Austrian flag in it.
Yeah, I did know that.
Because he was obviously going to unfurl it when he probably would have won, to be honest.
Yeah.
On his cool-down lap, which again is a bit lump in the throat stuff.
Yeah, because Senna was quite well connected, I think, to the grid. And at that point, he was probably becoming a bit of a father figure. Because he'd been around for a while, a bit like Hamilton is now.
Yeah, and I've actually, again, like I said, I did a bit of a deep dive. And I know there's always this kind of halo effect when a driver dies, that people kind of think, their kind of reputation gets amplified a bit because they died, especially if they die young. And it happens with musicians, anybody.
Yeah. But
it suddenly occurred to me that Senna was really odd, even in standards of racing drivers, because he was spiritual. He talked about God. There's this story about how he went to a primary school to talk in front of them, and then there was a reception for him afterwards at like the mayor's house in, I think he was with Sir Watkins, so it was at Sir Watkins' house in Scotland, and he saw the bishop had turned up, so he grabbed the bishop and they went off to pray together in a corner.
Yeah.
And you kind of can't imagine today's breed of racing drivers who are all technical and professional sportsmen. You kind of can't imagine any of them doing that. Or I mean, Hamilton's talked about having like an out-of-body experience in that Singapore qualifying lap.
Yeah, I think there is like... Well, I mean, to start with, Gasly has a crucifix on. And he does make a cross and kiss the sky whenever he starts a race, pretty much every time. So it's not totally gone, I think.
No, you're right, actually, because there was, when they had the no jewellery rule, I think there was a flurry of exemption requests for the drivers who were wearing St. Christopher's.
Yeah.
And I think it wasn't like, oh, Gasly wears a St. Christopher or a crucifix. I think there were quite a lot of them.
Yeah, I mean, it's just...
who were unwilling to go out without them.
Yeah.
But you're right. Senna had a real sense of service, I think you'd call it. You know, of looking after the younger drivers, of putting stuff back into his hometown in Brazil, of really kind of giving back, I think. Yeah,
I think, you know, the whole thing about Senna is that it's kind of like a very romantic ideal of like a racing driver, because he's like at one with the car and he's having an out-of-body experience and he's got the passion for it. But then if you actually look at the stats, his kind of complete foil was Prost, right? Because he was the calculator, he was the professor, they called him.
Yeah. Prost would be happy to come second or third if he'd win him the championship.
Yeah, and ultimately...
Senna would be like, I'm here to win.
Because the whole, 2 years in a row Japan, they crashed each other out.
Yeah.
Prost did it first, I think, didn't he?
I'm not sure.
I'm pretty sure I can check. I think it was 1989. Oh, no, 1990, then 1991. Because I think... and it was 89 and 90... yeah, so in 1989, Prost and Senna crashed in Prost's favour, so he won the championship because he got disqualified because he got pushed. Senna got disqualified for getting a push. So Prost did it first because he was like, I can win the championship if I just nudge him, low speed crash, we both retire, I win. Easy. And then Senna basically retaliated in the sort of, you know, flamboyant, passionate sense of like, well, you did it to me, so you get what you deserve. And I think that's kind of, you know... But in the end, Prost ended up being more successful, I think, than Senna.
Well, you had one more world championship.
And for a long time, until Schumacher came along, it was like Fangio, then Prost. Because he had like loads of wins as well, did Prost. And he's still up there. He's still got like 50-odd victories, which is like Verstappen's only just passed him.
Yeah, Verstappen's on 59.
Yeah, so it's like he actually was really much more successful.
Yeah.
But then Senna died and got the sort of mythos about him of like, you know, the passionate driver who like, you know.
And he also had a kind of, weirdly, an underdog status because he always felt the establishment, like there was that rain-soaked Monaco Grand Prix where he was making up 2 seconds a lap at Monaco.
Yeah,
and they cancelled the race. And then there was that thing you said with Prost where they decided because he got a push to get him out the gravel trap to keep him going, he was disqualified. And
yeah, but
it's a bit like Alonso today. He was like, why do the stewards keep doing this?
But also Prost didn't get any penalty for crashing into him deliberately.
Yeah, because the FIA is French.
In 2021, when they were final race championship decider, the steward said, if either of you crash into each other, we can disqualify both of you and deduct points, actually, they said, to basically give the championship to the other.
Yeah, although it would have gone to Hamilton, it would have gone to Verstappen if they crashed out, so it wasn't in...
Yeah, but if
wasn't
Verstappen...
really in anybody's favour, was it?
When Verstappen crashed into Hamilton, he'd win the championship, but then the FIA said we'd take it off him. But anyway.
Yeah, but then he didn't need to because he was on fresher tyres.
Yeah.
Anyway. Come back to the current day.
Yes.
Have you seen all this fuss about the fact that Verstappen was the only one not wearing a yellow T-shirt?
Vaguely. I didn't know there was fuss about it.
Well, Sebastian Vettel set up this whole thing where they were going to, or some of them were going to jog around the track. I think some people bought bicycles. Hamilton bought an electric scooter.
Yeah.
And they all had yellow T-shirts like with the stripes like Senna's helmet and #forever.
Yeah.
And it was like on the Thursday, and Vettel organised it, and 19 of the drivers turned up in their regulation yellow T-shirts, and Max Verstappen was wearing his Red Bull blue polo shirt.
I thought there was another driver who didn't as well.
There's probably selective reporting, isn't it?
I thought, although I'm trying to look for the news on it now, see if I can see any like press images, because it was it was Vettel. He has pretty immense pull in the
yeah, he's well liked as well. But my point was that Red Bull said, oh, he ran late and he just turned up and there wasn't enough time. And then I was thinking, actually, if somebody's got a yellow T-shirt, how long does it take to even undo the top 3 buttons of a shirt, pull it off over your head, chuck a T-shirt on? Were they running so late they couldn't spare 20 to 30 seconds?
It's like 3 seconds, I think. I think it's probably, cynically speaking, Red Bull saying it's more important that we get the, sponsors wanted to see it.
But then I think Perez was wearing a yellow T-shirt, so...
Yeah, I've just found images. Bottas is actually wearing a proper cycling jersey, not the yellow T-shirt.
Oh, okay.
Because he was on a bike, he had his helmet on as well, because he's big into cycling as well.
Oh, okay. So it's Bottas, and it just, I don't know, something about that just struck me as a bit odd.
I mean, I'm trying to see from the pictures. They got a lot of the F2 grid in as well.
Yeah, see, so Verstappen would have just turned up with a box of T-shirts, wouldn't he?
Vettel,
Not
yeah.
Verstappen, Vettel. I'm just like, if he wanted to wear one, like we say, it would have added seconds onto the day.
Yeah, I wish there were more pictures I could see, but I think it's a bit of a kind of thing over nothing, really. I don't think Verstappen didn't wear a T-shirt. I don't think Senna's in heaven disapproving of him or anything. Or I don't think it means that he's like being disrespectful. I think it's just how it shook out. Yeah,
it's just a bit odd. Right, free practices. I think, weren't the Ferraris fastest in all the free practices?
I think so. Certainly the feeling throughout free practice was that Red Bull were not very fast.
Do you know who fixed it for them?
It was Leclerc, Piastri were fastest. Who fixed the car for Red Bull?
And then enter Sebastian Buemi.
Yes, I did hear this. They said it on the
and
commentary.
There was somebody else who's never been an F1 driver, whose name, unfortunately, I can't remember.
Yeah.
But apparently they were basically, Friday to Saturday, overnight, back in the UK, they were running hundreds of simulations.
Yeah, I heard 11-hour shift, I heard.
Yeah,
which
I
is
heard
ridiculous.
like 10 or 11 hours on the simulators to see, basically qualifying, you've got one chance to make a setup change.
Yeah.
And that's that, so they need to know what to change and where.
Well, Buemi is also a Formula E champion. Right from the beginning, he was there.
Yeah.
He's won 4 endurance championships. I'm pretty sure he's won Le Mans 4 times as well.
Oh yeah, he's not a bad driver. He just doesn't happen to have an F1 seat at the moment.
Well, he was sort of 2010s, 2012 Red Bull junior driver, and I think he then got shuffled out for Ricardo in the end.
So he's well known to them anyway.
Yeah, he's part of the family, and he's a very, he's like probably one of the top 50, 30 odd drivers in the world. If he got into an F1 car, he probably could do quite well, obviously.
Yeah, well, obviously with the simulator work.
Yeah.
Did you hear also about the kind of Hulkenberg-Verstappen bromance as well? That's hilarious.
I didn't know. You've really immersed yourself in Formula One. I've been busy over the weekend.
Oh yeah, you've had a degree to get a master's actually, so congratulations on finishing your exams.
Thanks. I wasn't able to read all this stuff.
In Q2, completely by accident, Hulkenberg went over the line right behind Verstappen and basically got a tow.
Yes.
And then Verstappen's actually said in Q3, if he hadn't got the tow off Hulkenberg in return, it wasn't really in return, they didn't sit down and plot it, just how it shook out, he probably wouldn't have got pole.
Yeah.
Because he got pole by something like 0.074 was the win, I think.
I'm seeing it was 8 hundredths.
0.08.
Yeah.
So,
much.
Yeah, they said it was a complete accident, but basically, Verstappen got Hulkenberg into Q3, and then Hulkenberg returned the favour and gave him pole, which is kind of quite funny because it wasn't planned, and
it's kind of interesting. Yeah,
it's kind of nice to see a human side of Verstappen kind of joking about it, and
yeah, Verstappen's been kind of a lot more relaxed recently, although it might start getting a bit more tense.
Yeah.
I think, the last 2 years have been so easy for him. He's just been like, why worry about anything? He's going to win the race. He might as well just chill.
It's like this weekend he won a simulator, an esports endurance race.
Yeah, he was.
While he was on an F1 weekend.
Yeah, 24 hours of the Nürburgring.
Yeah.
And his team won. He was actually the slowest on his team, but the others were like professional level sim racers, and he was like a 10th off. On the Nordschleife as well, which is like a 15-minute track or whatever.
Yeah, and I mean, who on earth relaxes on an F1 weekend by competing in esports simulation racing? That's just weird.
Well, someone who, A, lives and breathes racing so much that he just does it all the time, and B, is under basically zero pressure to actually practice and run the simulator.
Yeah, especially if they've got Buemi to do sim runs for him.
Why do you think Buemi might get a bit miffed if it's we need you to put 11 hours in, and then you look over and Verstappen is playing a video game, literally on a simulator, just not on the right one? I'd be a bit well, but he's getting paid for it, so.
Yeah, it's money, isn't it? Was I the only one who wanted the actual race itself to go another 5 laps?
No, I think Norris did, obviously.
Yes.
Every single person working for McLaren, probably quite a few people who aren't. Everybody, not working for Red Bull, basically.
Yeah, and also the kind of neutral viewers, I hope we are, who just want a good race.
Yeah, I think, I do try and appreciate the whole, race, regardless of who wins.
Yeah.
Because I think if there's an amazing... if you're a Verstappen fan, then Miami, even though it was awesome, you'd be a bit it's a bit of a shame, though, because Verstappen didn't win.
Yeah.
Or if you're a Piastri fan, you'd be disappointed. Whereas if you're just a Formula One fan, then every race is good.
Yeah.
Unless it's, boring.
Well, yeah, there are some of those. But, what I've realised, and actually Hamilton said this as well, the problem with modern Formula One is the tyres are in such a narrow window. And actually, that's what happened at Imola this time. On the mediums, the Red Bull was switched on and he was doing his usual trick. He was pulling out a nice big lead in the first stint and getting, safe. Mm-hmm. And then they went on to the hards and they couldn't make the hards work.
Yeah.
And you had kind of weird to and fro's where at one point Norris was under threat from Sainz, and then all of a sudden some mysterious tyre genie happened, and suddenly Norris was no longer under attack from Sainz, but fighting for the lead.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it was Bahrain or somewhere where the drivers were actually saying, oh yeah, if we push hard in sectors 1 and 2, they go off by sector 3.
Yeah.
Where you've now got a tyre that won't do a whole lap.
Yeah.
I'm sure we've mentioned this before, haven't we?
Yeah. Whereas, also, Piastri, he pushed on his outlap 2 laps to get track position on Sainz.
Yeah.
And then because he did that, his tyres were too knackered to go after Leclerc. He pushed too hard in the early phase, and then they couldn't keep delivering that same performance.
Or do you think that's also because they were probably a bit colder and they hadn't come up to heat?
Yeah, if he was just thrashing them while they were cold. I mean, at that point you're almost getting into like material science.
Yeah.
And like, you know, the composition of the rubber and how it behaves in certain conditions. And it's like...
Yeah. It's weird. I mean, Hamilton has said he's never raced a car with such a narrow operating window on the tyres.
I think that's also just the Mercedes, though. It's just a car that it has a narrow operating window in general.
Yeah, I mean, it is the Mercedes, but I think, like you said, it's not just the Mercedes. It's happened to Piastri. It's happened to the Red Bull.
Yeah.
The Red Bull's gone from being 7, 8, 9 seconds out in front to suddenly losing a second or two a lap.
Yeah.
Just because it changed the tyres. It's just like...
Well, I think this was this was a race where Verstappen had no damage. He had no problems at all. No, retirements. And Norris was faster than him, pretty much.
Yeah. That's a good point, actually. There's no kind of circumstances where there's not stuck brake, there's not run over a bollard.
I mean, when Norris won in Miami, afterwards they said, yeah, but look, you could see video of Verstappen running over the bollard, and it actually does tear his floor apart a bit.
But he wouldn't have run over the bollard if Piastri hadn't been pushing him, so...
Yeah, but you also do kind of think, the Red Bull's still that good. But then you look at this race, and Perez was 8th.
Yeah, that's all Verstappen's skill, isn't it?
And afterwards, Verstappen, 7/10 is the closest anyone's finished behind Verstappen for years, I think. And afterwards, he actually looked tired.
I'll hold my hand up here. I was wrong.
Yes.
I said last time out, it's a traditional racetrack, it's an old school track. Red Bull will bounce back and just walk away in 14, 15 seconds into the distance. Completely got that one wrong.
Yeah, they were not... It's basically the gains that McLaren made with the upgrades were not a one-off.
No.
Because now they're comfortably faster than a Ferrari.
Yeah.
Leclerc seems to have the measure of Sainz mostly. That was not Sainz's best race.
I think Sainz is still ahead in the championship, though.
I don't know that he is, actually. I think it's getting quite tight, actually. Let's have a look. No.
Oh, no.
Leclerc's now 2nd. He's beaten Perez out as well.
Sainz
of course.
Is 5th. There's 20 points difference because of the appendix. I forgot about that.
Yeah. But, I mean... Yeah, that probably does about account for it, actually. I do know that Leclerc and Sainz are very evenly matched across the season.
Yeah.
But Leclerc's kind of leading the team at the moment.
Well, by default, yeah.
Pretty quietly picking up seconds and thirds.
Yeah. I mean, it's not, you're right, it's not as showy as, winning every race, but he's a very frequent visitor to the podium.
Yeah. But now I think McLaren are going to be that second team.
Well, while we've got the page up, I'm looking at the standings. Leclerc's on 113.
Yes.
Perez is on 107. Norris is on 101. And Sainz is on 93.
There's one race win is now between Leclerc and Sainz.
Well, even more than that, if somebody has a DNF or a bad race where they finish out of the points, and somebody else, even third place and gets a 15...
They could jump, yeah.
If
Norris could jump to 2nd.
Yeah, in one race without, just one DNF or really bad qualifying, or like what happened to Piastri. Where he tangles and has to have a nose change, in the last 10, 15 laps of the race and just can't get back. And it's the same, actually, further down. Piastri, Russell, Hamilton and Alonso are all separated by 20 points.
Yeah, that's a pretty close fight for, best of the rest, actually, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, Piastri should be further up because he's in the same car as Norris.
Yeah, Piastri had some bad luck, I think, early on, especially with that Miami, where, Norris won and he ended up out of the points.
Yeah.
But given what we've seen... I kind of expect Piastri to get... I mean, he hasn't been on the podium this year, but if everything goes right, he should be there.
Yeah. And that Piastri, I think, will move in the next race or two into a solid 6th place in a kind of no man's land between Russell, Hamilton and Alonso and Carlos Sainz.
Yeah, he should pull away from them. But again, it's only 40 points. That's only like 2 bad races.
Yeah.
He could close that up. And, there's like... How many races are even left? 17?
Yeah, I think... Was Imola round 8 or round 9?
It was round 7. We got 24.
Oh yeah, 5, 6, 7. I'm looking at the wins.
So yeah, that was... We've got a long way to go, basically.
Yeah.
And also, if the overall shape of the season keeps going like it is, which is that McLaren are catching up and Red Bull are starting to struggle, the championship is maybe not even like locked down yet.
Yeah, I mean, he's a long way ahead. He's like 50 odd points.
50 points. Again, it's only 2 wins.
48 points.
And it's like across a whole season, like 17 extra races.
It's about 3 points a race would do it.
That's not impossible to overhaul.
No.
It's unlikely, I think. I think Verstappen still probably will win.
Yeah.
But I think Norris can fight for second quite comfortably with Leclerc and Perez.
Yeah. I had a moment. I was, as you know, I scroll through Facebook when I'm bored. And my Facebook is trying to be like TikTok and suggest stuff to me that I would like to read. So I get a lot of Facebook, like, clickbaity articles about Formula One. Which I kind of read with a bit of a cynical eye, because I kind of know which ones are complete sensationalist kind of rubbishy sites and which ones are good.
Yeah.
But I saw this one about why Lewis Hamilton was annoyed with Toto Wolff, and I thought, click on it. And it suddenly crystallised something for me as another reason why the Red Bull Verstappen partnership is so dominant, and also clears up quite a lot of things I've been wondering about. Verstappen is the team leader of Red Bull.
Yeah.
On the grid, he's the only leading driver in that position. And I always noticed that after Abu Dhabi 2021, Hamilton vanished for 6 weeks.
Yeah, something like that.
He picked up a fine for not going to the big black tie event where they hand out the prizes. And then he announced he was coming back. He said, I've got Senna's helmet, or a yellow helmet to emulate Senna, although I think that's now gone purple. And he said he'd have the yellow T-bar, which traditionally is the kind of second-rated driver.
Yeah,
it's the Perez to your Verstappen.
I think that's sort of going away a bit now, because I think Norris has got yellow T-bar.
Yeah, but I always wondered why he did that, because that was a really obvious change. He'd had the black T-bar since he'd been at Mercedes, basically.
Yeah.
And it suddenly dawned on me, the other difference between 21 and 22 is that Mercedes sacked Bottas and brought George Russell up.
Yeah.
And I think he was kind of almost subliminally saying to the fans, I'm no longer their number one driver. Because Russell is not brought up as a wingman. He's not a Rosberg or a Bottas or a Perez.
No.
He's a Toto Wolff managed driver who Toto Wolff wants to be good and wants to be a future world champion.
Yeah.
And I think that was Hamilton's subtle way of saying, what are you playing at?
Yeah.
If you want to... Because he got on really well with Valtteri Bottas.
Yeah, I mean, he said in an interview that Bottas was his favourite teammate, basically.
Yeah.
Which is understandable, given how things went with Rosberg.
And also to an extent with Russell. Not that I think he hates Russell or he doesn't get on with him, but it's clear that Russell is there for his own agenda to win races.
And Russell is like pushing him, basically.
Yeah.
He's like querying why they swap positions round, and he's like asking to get past Hamilton and stuff. He's not just sitting back and letting Lewis win everything.
Yeah, which, to an extent Bottas would have done. I mean, he talked the talk and, he's a finished racing driver. He's very laid back. He's very fast. He probably, to be honest, lacks that extra 5 to 10% of magic that somebody like Raikkonen or Hakkinen had to actually win championships.
Yeah, I think so. But I also think He did get a bit fiery later on, didn't he? Sort of like 2019, 2020, he was actually the main challenger.
Yeah.
But I think he honestly, he kind of is, I think he's just accepted that now that's going to be his sort of legacy.
Yeah. But then you look at anybody who's challenging Red Bull. Ferrari have made the same mistake.
Hmm.
You know, they've got... It's going to be... We talked about this in a previous podcast. Who's the team leader out of Leclerc and Hamilton?
Yeah.
I mean... And then you look at McLaren. Who's the team leader there?
Right now it's Norris, yeah.
But
Piastri's actually quite a good team player and he's quite laid back.
But it's not kind of set in stone, is it?
No, because they're both quite young. And Piastri is very, very fast for how inexperienced he is. So maybe 1-2 more seasons and there might be friction there.
But the thing is, Max is undisputed team leader.
Hmm.
And it's not just... I mean, obviously, Perez has bad weekends like he did this weekend, where he's not there as a wingman and he can't, double up the strategies and do all that kind of stuff.
Mm.
But it's not just that. It's the fact that if Max says, I want a car that turns in like this, that's heavy on the rear, light on the rear, they will make a car that is a Max Verstappen weapon.
Yeah.
And certainly none of the top 8 I'm looking here. Not the McLarens, not the Mercedes, not the Ferraris. They haven't got that advantage.
Yeah. Even Aston Martin are in a bit of a strange position. Because Alonso's clearly the better driver.
Yeah.
Although he had a really bad weekend, actually. He was literally last.
Yeah, he stacked it a few times, didn't he?
Yeah, but that was actually kind of a weirdly out of character race for Alonso.
Especially as it's an old school track and it's one he's probably raced at, a lot of times in the past.
Yeah, I mean, he's got epic, classic battles with Schumacher at Imola.
Yeah.
But, Aston Martin, they should do that with Alonso because he's the best. But then they've got Stroll is actually personally connected to Lawrence Stroll.
Yeah.
So it's a bit...
And you see, I think it comes down partly to Toto Wolff also being a manager of drivers because now he's doing the same thing. He's bringing Kimi Antonelli up.
Which is going to cause problems with Russell probably sooner rather than later.
And then both of them are going to feel... And it's kind of weird because we had the whole thing with Alonso and Hamilton at the beginning of Hamilton's career where they had 2 hot drivers in the McLaren team and it just imploded.
Yeah.
And you look at how much Max Verstappen's marching all over there, you kind of think, how's nobody else noticed this is what you need? You need a definite B driver.
Well, look at Hamilton, right? 2007, he had Alonso as his teammate.
Yeah.
Everybody knows how that went.
Yeah.
They got under each other's skin. 2008, Hamilton had Kovalainen as a teammate.
Yeah.
And he wins.
Yeah.
I mean, he only wins by 1 point, but he only lost by 1 point the previous year.
Yeah.
So it is and how do you win 7 championships? You have Barrichello on your side.
Yeah. You have... It's a very fine balancing act because you need somebody who is only a few percentage points off being a world champion material. So you need somebody who's fast enough to come in second, who can get close enough to you on the track that you can split your strategies if you need to mess up the people behind you, who can go on and take wins if you're DNF. Somebody like Hamilton or Verstappen or Schumacher can dominate. You know what I mean? It's a real balancing act.
Yeah, that's why the Barrichello type driver is almost as valuable as having a Hamilton or Schumacher. Because do you know who Button's teammate was?
Oh, I should know this.
Rubens Barrichello.
Oh,
when he won in 2009.
Yeah.
Which is how much of it was the brawn and how much of it was the fact that actually Button had the perfect B driver.
Yeah.
I mean, Barrichello, I think, must have assisted 6 or 7 championships total.
Yeah, which is kind of a weird thought, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
And you'd be a bit kind of... I always wonder what the mentality is of drivers like that, or like Webber or Coulthard, who they can probably sit there and go, I was a really good F1 driver, which immediately means you're probably, like you say, one of the best 30 or 40 drivers in the world.
Yeah.
And to be an F1 driver who's won multiple races puts you in a very elite group. But then they've also rubbed shoulders with multiple world champions, and they're like, what am I missing? What's the final part?
Well, I think it, ultimately Webber gave up, didn't he?
Yeah.
Like, he left Formula One overall after 4 years being second fiddle to Sebastian.
Yeah.
And, Rosberg finally beat Hamilton and then left.
Yeah.
It's like those kind of drivers do kind of wear out their teammates, because how do you sort of mentally cope with that?
Yeah, being good enough to be second to a legend, it's
kind of the problem with Ferrari now as well, because they're so evenly matched. Sainz has won more races than Leclerc has in the last 2 years.
Yeah.
Because, Leclerc only has 5 victories total, I think. Which is the same as Sainz.
I'm surprised it's that many, to be honest, because they've come up in a kind of era of Hamilton handing the baton over to Verstappen, or having it ripped from his hands with a huge fight, depending on, what your point of view is.
Yeah. But, it is a bit... At the same time, you think about Leclerc, and he's such a good driver that if those two weren't there, surely he'd be championship material.
Well, yeah.
But he's been in the sport for 6 years now, and he's only got 5 wins.
It's been a very... Hopefully the kind of balance is changing now, and it'll be a bit more open for a year or two.
Yeah. I think if Red Bull aren't up to the task in 2025, I don't think Verstappen will stay for another bad year.
No. I think that's a lot of commentators are saying that now, that also he probably wants to stay for 2025 to see what the 2026 car looks like.
Yeah, get an idea of the regs ahead of time.
Yeah, see what the engine feels like, seeing.
But can Red Bull design, without Adrian Newey?
Yeah.
Because he won't be on the new regs, so he might.
Yeah, I was actually thinking about McLaren. And the fact that they've gone from literally zero to hero in 18 months? 2 years?
Well, depends what you mean by zero.
Well, they had years where they were trying to get out of Q1.
Yeah, that was 10 years ago.
Yeah, I think even...
No, because for me, it was as soon as they got Norris and Sainz in, which was 2019, they sort of broke the curse in a way. Because they then went for because then they got the podium at Brazil with Sainz, and then Ricciardo got that victory in Italy, and that's when they were truly out of the depths
slump
that they were in with Alonso and Van Dorn.
Yeah, I'm just having a look at the Wikipedia page now.
I think they've honestly been on a pretty consistent upwards trajectory since 2019. Just, standard.
Oh yeah, you're right, actually. They came 4th in the Constructors' Championship in 2019.
They've honestly been just consistently improving, which is quite impressive, actually.
Yeah, I think it's a sport of such fine margins that things like the personnel at the team kind of ethos and mentality in a way. Got 700 and something. Ferrari got 500. Red Bull got 400. And then McLaren were down on 145, so that definitely was that.
Points.
Yeah. So it was definitely a kind of Formula 0.5 among the top 3 teams.
Yeah, but then in 2015, do you know how many points McLaren got?
probably 5 or something.
It was 27.
Yeah.
And then they got 30 in 2017. 62 in 2018, which was probably the first upwards tick, and then it was 145 with Sainz and Norris, which is percentage wise double.
Yeah.
And then 203, 275. 2022 is not great, to be fair. But then 302, and now they're on 154. With, a victory, so...
Yeah, it has been... You're right, it has been more steady, but... Like I said, it's kind of interesting how it's probably fairly minor adjustments. Yeah, they've been solidly 4th in the Constructors for a good few years, actually. And they're the ones winning races and challenging.
Yeah. I think Norris is probably also responsible.
Oh yeah, they've been 4th or 5th, let's be honest.
Yeah.
Just having a quick scan back, and now all of a sudden they are there. But I think they had a few personnel changes at the top, didn't they?
Yeah, they got rid of their old team principal. But I mean, yeah, I think I said it last time. Zach Brown has been CEO for since 2016, I think.
Yeah, and he's done. I mean, I think the reason I was saying all this was that with all the turmoil at Red Bull, it's kind of coincided with their very slight dip in form.
Hmm.
And it's a sport of tenths of a second, hundredths of a second. I think, things like that and how people are feeling and whether they're prepared to stay, even if they're prepared to stay at work for an extra 10, 15 minutes just to get it, just so.
Yeah, if they're sort of motivated to give everything, that can translate to lap time.
Yeah.
Which is kind of crazy to think about.
It is. How are we doing on actual podcast time?
Pretty much getting towards the end, I think.
Okay, what did you make of the Russell-Hamilton swap over? To come back to the race, obviously.
It was interesting. So basically, Russell was ahead.
Yeah.
I don't know how far he was. He had a good 20 seconds pit stop gap to Perez.
I think he was 26 ahead of Perez.
As did Hamilton, I think. Hamilton also had a gap to Perez. Free pit stop. Which is also kind of a damning indictment on Perez. I mean...
Partly on Perez and partly on how bad the car was on that track.
Yeah, but they decided to pit Russell so that he could go for fastest lap, which he did get.
Yeah.
So just having a look at where Russell was. Russell did a 2-stop.
Yeah, and he finished 12 seconds behind Lewis.
But Russell pitted first on lap 21, then Hamilton on lap 27. So there were only 6 laps different to each other.
Yeah.
A 6-lap offset, as they would say in the business.
Yeah.
So it's kind of... Did Russell chew through his tyres that much more?
Well, they said you won't make it to the end, which is quite interesting.
I mean, yeah, there could have been that they were actually worried about the degradation in terms of a blowout or something.
Yeah, although I suppose if they looked at it, they've got all the computers, if they could see that George Russell's lap time was dropping more than Hamilton's, they were on 14 points for 6 and 8. If they're sitting there thinking, if we can pit one of our drivers and get fastest lap, we can get on 15, which doesn't sound like much, but...
Well, yeah.
And then you look at the drivers and you go, well, George Russell's got worse deg. His lap times are dipping more. It's just a racing decision, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that's probably what it was.
I think it's weird that George Russell said, well, can Lewis give me my track place back?
Yeah.
Because, he's a pit stop behind.
Yeah, Russell ended the race 12 seconds behind Lewis.
I mean, how much would Lewis have had to have lifted off?
Well, he would have to stop on one of the hairpins.
Wait for him to go past. Or, pull over to the side of the straight and wait for him.
Yeah, it's just Also, he's a racing driver. There's no reason. It's
Yeah.
not like Russell's gonna try and overtake Sainz and like wants to get, have a go at the car ahead. It's just purely pride, isn't it?
Yeah, because also then if Lewis has thrown away 12 seconds and he goes past him, there's no way he can attack the person who was in front of Lewis, because he'll be at least 12 seconds up the road. It's just logic.
I mean, Lewis was 12 seconds back from Sainz anyway. He was actually 12 seconds away from each car.
Yeah.
He was in a complete no man's land.
So if he dropped back 12 seconds, George would have still been like 45 seconds behind.
Yeah, he would have been like 20... well, he was currently 25 seconds off Sainz.
And he would have been somewhere probably a bit more than that because of faffing around to swap drivers.
Yeah, it was just like... I can understand why Russell would be like... a bit annoyed that they pitted him for fastest lap, because he did lose a position for it. But... it's just kind of weird. I don't really... Yeah.
Also, it kind of shows a really innate fairness in the Mercedes garage, because I think Ferrari have started treating Carlos a bit differently since he's got the elbow. I can't imagine Ferrari doing the same thing for Carlos Sainz in his favour if it came up that way round.
Yeah, I think there has been a general feeling that's been the case with Sainz for a few years anyway.
But I think it's very fair-minded of them, unless it was just genuinely a safety thing, like you say, with the...
Yeah, that would be weird, though, because Ricciardo pitted on lap... Gasly pitted on lap 8.
Yeah.
And went to the end. Like, he didn't do any extra pit stops, I don't think, not that I can see. So why would Russell pitting on lap 21 then be in trouble?
Oh no, Gasly did 2 stops.
Did he? I couldn't see the second one on the... Oh, okay, yes. Because it doesn't... The list I'm looking at, it doesn't have the numbers in order. So you go to the bottom, it says 2, 2, 3. God, Albon did 4 stops.
And then retired.
He also got in trouble. He got in trouble for driving around.
Oh, yeah.
With a potentially loose tyre, which is fair enough.
Yeah, I looked for the orange stripe on the crash barriers and bin it, unfortunately.
Yeah, because he had to retire anyway, didn't he? So it was...
Well, yeah, but like you say, they're racing drivers. If there's any chance, they want to take it.
But, I mean, maybe it's a bit sort of like sensationalist to think it, but it is Imola.
Yeah.
And it was a tyre through the cockpit that killed Senna in the end.
Yeah.
So it's a bit like, the tyres are actually properly lethal.
Oh, it was actually a suspension arm that snapped off, but yeah, I'll take your point. They're big and heavy and fast moving.
Still, the idea of like driving around with a
loose,
even if you think it's a loose tyre,
yeah,
surely the sensible thing to do is just to pull over.
Yeah, pull over somewhere safe.
Maybe he heard the guy saying that there's 100% probability of a pit stop.
Safety car,
and he wanted
which was wrong.
Well, yeah, because it was extrapolating. I think since 2020, there's been a safety car at every race. So then they do that weird statistics thing of saying, well, from this data set, there's a probability.
Yeah.
Which is not actually the same thing. And I think it's quite funny that, the gods of statistics decided to prove him wrong.
Yeah, he was saying it all the time, and then...
We barely even had I don't even think there were yellow flags for Albon.
Yeah, or VSC or anything.
He was the only retirement as well. It was one of the most sedate races, actually, in terms of that sort of thing.
Yeah. Anyway, we are probably going over time. Can we just quickly look forward to Monaco?
Yes.
Because, as we've said, McLaren are catching Red Bull in the performance stakes. Monaco's a weird circuit. It's not like any of the other 23 on the calendar.
It's an extreme, yeah.
It's not really a power circuit.
Well, it's the opposite, isn't it? It's who's got the most downforce.
Yeah, and who's got the best drivers. So I think maybe we might see Lewis's best result of 2024.
Maybe, if they get the damn car actually set up.
I can't remember. They keep saying it's good in one speed of corner. If it's good in low speed corners, it will do.
I think I can't remember either. I think thing is, the Red Bull is fast everywhere.
Yeah, or was.
I think it's the medium speed is where the McLaren is super quick.
So McLaren might have a really good chance.
But I also think Monaco is more driver than anything else.
Yeah, and it's more chance of red flags, safety cars, even red flags in qualifying.
Yeah. As much as it's a bit of a boring race, it is kind of, the whole event is kind of a laugh.
Yeah,
because it is proper F1 heritage.
And the glitz and the glamour
But it's done in a way that's not as forced as like Vegas. Vegas feels very showy and American.
Well, this is very old world class, isn't it?
It's old world European, princes and stuff turn up, but it's all quite sort of understated and fancy in a kind of classy way.
Yeah. No, I'm looking forward to it, actually.
Yes, me too, because I get to watch it without having to revise.
Yeah. So, we'll be back probably next week with another podcast for another race.
Wow.
Yep, happening thick and fast. You've been listening to me, Graham Miller. Check out my crime books, Graham H. Miller. And you've been listening to Toby, who, if you found this on YouTube, which seems to be where most of our clicks are coming from, you can subscribe to his channel. Mm-hmm. Thank you for listening, and we'll say goodbye.
Yeah, bye.